Hello my dear students, welcome to computer science class. Today we shall start with a new topic, that is approach to problem solving. There are two approaches for the problem solving, that is top down approach and the bottom up approach. Let us understand what is top down approaches. Top down approach is a one wherein we need to divide the entire given problem into the sub problems and further dividing the sub problems into the smaller sub problems. So we have to continue this dividing procedure until the sub problems could be implemented as a program statements. Now let me explain this one definition with a example here. Look at this particular example. Now A is a given problem. This A given problem is being divided into the sub problems, that is B, C and D. And further these sub problems are being divided into smaller sub problems, that is B is further divided with the E, F and D is divided with a further G and H. Like this the division keeps on continuing until this E and F, until these sub problems could be implemented in a programming statements. So until that we need to continue this particular division. Such an approach we actually refer it as an top-down design approach. Now the sub programs or the sub problems we can refer them, or you can even refer them to the modules. So the E, F, G, H, the sub problems will be very much simpler enough, and it is very much easily to implement or convert them into the programming languages. So therefore this kind of top-down design structure could be viewed like a tree-like structure. So let us understand this one with another programming example here. Now this is a top-down design approach wherein we need to convert the given temperature. So when you are converting a temperature, you can convert it either in Fahrenheit to the centigrade you can convert, or convert it from centigrade to the Fahrenheit. So we have two options here. Therefore, this particular given problem is being divided into one sub problem, that is we call it as selection menu. Again this further sub problem or the sub program is being further divided into two more sub problems. So in that first sub problem is we refer it as Fahrenheit to centigrade, and in the other one sub program we can refer it as centigrade to the Fahrenheit. Now when you look at this particular Fahrenheit to centigrade, when you need to convert, isn't it we need to provide an input in the form of Fahrenheit. Next problem would be sub problem would be we need to convert the given temperature, and finally we need to have another sub problem known as output. So therefore this given sub problem is being further divided into smaller sub problems wherein we are asking the user to input the temperature in the Fahrenheit, and then we are converting that Fahrenheit given temperature into the centigrade. So what is the formula to convert the Fahrenheit to the centigrade is F minus 32 into 5 by 9. After this calculation we are storing it back into a variable known as C. So finally once you convert the given temperature, next step is what? Next problem should be we need to output the centigrade temperature. So this is we are dividing the given problem up to such a smaller sub problems, where when you look at these smaller sub problems we can implement them in a programming statements. Until that we need to continue our division. This approach we actually call it as top-down design. Similarly we can even do it for the centigrade to the Fahrenheit conversion. Similarly, now this time give the input in the form of centigrade, convert the given temperature from centigrade to the Fahrenheit. So the formula we are using is 9 by 5 into the centigrade temperature plus 32. After calculating, store it in a variable known as F, and finally once the calculation takes place you need to output the Fahrenheit temperature. So this kind of approach we actually refer it as top-down analysis. Moving on to another example which was being asked for the annual exam. So draw the top-down design approach in order to calculate the area and circumference of the circle. This is one of your annual exam question which had appeared in the past year. So area and a circumference of a circle. This is my main program. This main program is being divided into sub problems. The first one is to ask for the input data. The next is the processing data. The next is output. So in input data, what is required to calculate the area and circumference? That is input R. And when you process your data, isn't it, we have two tasks here, two subtasks we have. Therefore, one subtask is to calculate the area. The another subtask is to calculate the circumference, and once we calculate the area and circumference, the next subtask is to provide the output. So output area and output circumference. So this is one of the examples. Similarly, they may also ask you explain the top-down design with a simple example, and if this kind of an question if they are asking, then just explain what is a top-down design, write its definition, and just draw one simple example. Now these could be called as I said, these could be called as sub problems. You can call it as sub programs, or you can even refer them as the modules. I hope students you are able to understand. Now moving on to the what are the advantages of using this problem top-down design. The first advantage is that this top-down actually imitates the human tendency, wherein we need to figure out the given problem and then divide the given problem into the simple problems that subsequently helps to go into the details. And finally, the detailed sub problems could be worked with a minimum or no change. That means what? See, whenever any problem is or any program is given to you, you will try to find out, you will try to divide that given problem into subtasks. First, what we have to do, what will be my next step, what will be the third step, like that you will try to figure out. And once if you solve or write your program step by step, okay, once you start thinking in the form of step by step, okay, then finally you will actually link them, okay, and then finally you integrate them and lead to the one optimal solution. Same way in the top-down design also, it actually imitates the human tendency, wherein it will first figure out what is the program is about or what is the problem is about, and then it will subsequently start dividing, and it will divide until it leads to some optimal solution. And whatever the modules or whatever the sub problems it has been generated, they are very simple enough to implement in the program statements without any certain, if sometimes it may need modification or sometimes it may not need any kind of modifications. What is our second advantage of using top-down design is, whatever the assumptions we make it at one level, okay, during writing a program or developing a program, we make certain assumptions, isn't it, like A is equal to 10 or B is equal to 60. So before we start with the program, we make some initializations, assumptions we make it, and then we proceed with our development of the program, isn't it? So the assumption which we make during the development of the program initially may continue to the development of the next level of subprograms. Until you continue with your subproblem solving, whatever the assumptions you make it at initial point may continue till the last. So these are the advantages. Because of these advantages, if we use the top-down design approach for designing the programs which will be developed using this kind of an approach could be easily, quickly, and it may consist of very minimum number of errors. So these are some of the examples of the top-down design, how it works. Moving on to the next approach is the bottom-up approach. So before we begin with the bottom-up approach, let us see this one example, top-down approach, where the main program is divided into the subprograms and subprograms further divided into smaller subprograms until we need to the solution, optimal solution. But look at this bottom-up approach. Bottom-up approach is exactly reverse of that of the top-down approach. Here, first we will design the modules or the subprograms or the subtasks. We will design those, and then we will integrate into the again the subprograms or the modules, and finally we shall integrate these again subprograms into the main problem. So when we integrate all these sub-modules or the sub-programs, we may end up with an optimal solution. So this is how the bottom-up approach will work. So therefore, the bottom-up approach, we can say it as an, it is a reverse of that of the top-down design, wherein the process will begin with identification of set of modules. Suppose for an example, if I want to write a program to calculate the arithmetic operations. When I say arithmetic operations, I have a different kinds of modules or the subtasks. One subtask might be I might provide the addition, one more I will write for the multiplication, one more for subtraction. So while having a bottom-up approach, I will write a subprogram for addition, I'll write a subprogram for multiplication, I'll write a subprogram for the division, I'll write the subprogram for modulus. So I will combine these two modules in one module, I'll combine these two modules in another module or the subprogram, and then finally I'll integrate them in order to develop the overall solution to this particular problem. Therefore, we need to first identify the bottom-up approach. How it will begin? It will first begin by identifying the set of modules what we require to construct our program. I hope you are able to understand. So once the sub modules are being designed, we need to combine all these lower level modules in order to form one higher level module. So this process of combining the modules will continue until we reach to one optimal solution. So this is how the bottom-up approach will work. Now what are the drawback of this kind of bottom-up approach? The bottom-up approach, what we have obtained by combining all these modules, lowest level modules, at certain point of a time when you reach to the end of your program, it may not meet all the requirements of the desired program. Sometimes what happens, whatever you have designed all these lowest modules and after that you have combined it, so once you further combine it, so whatever the optimal solution we may reach, at some time what happens, we may not fulfill all the requirements which are being asked by the user. This is a drawback of this bottom-up approach. Now let me explain this one with a bottom-up approach, one of the example here. Now look at the sorting of n numbers. See, sorting of n numbers. Sorting means either you can arrange the given numbers either in the form of ascending or the descending order. So actually first I will design the sub programs or the sub modules. I will write a code for comparison first. Then I will write, when you compare, I will write a code to exchange or swapping. Now these two modules are being combined, or these two sub-problems are being combined, and then we can form a overall code in order to perform the sorting of n numbers. So this kind of an approach we actually form it as bottom-up approach. Okay, so this was an example. Now let us move on to the programming techniques here. Before to that, let us know what is actually the stepwise refinement. The stepwise refinement is nothing but it is the process of breaking down the problem at each stage in order to attain the computer solution. We call it as an stepwise refinement. That means the given overall problem is being divided into further subproblems, and further subproblems will divide into further smaller subproblems. So this process keeps on continuing until we attain the computer solution. This process we call it actually as stepwise refinement. Now let us move on to the programming techniques. In this particular programming techniques, we have first one to deal with unstructured programming. So let us start with this. Herein, the unstructured programming language, herein we actually write very small and simple program consisting of only one main program. In case of unstructured, we have a complete only one main program. So this main program may consist of sequence of statements which can modify the data globally throughout the whole program. That means what whatever the procedure. Suppose if I write the program for an arithmetic operations, the operation for subtraction, addition, multiplication, division, modulus operation, every data could be written only within the one main program itself, so that the data could be easily modified globally. Okay, so the main program will directly operate on addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Okay, so that means what? This main program actually consists of the sequence of statements that would modify the data. Suppose another example, another division operation, if I have to add to the arithmetic, easily we can make the modification. So we can make the modification to the data at any part of your program. But what is a disadvantage of using this unstructured program is that this technique doesn't work well enough when the program becomes very large. If a 5 operations or around 10 operations, this may work very fine. What if your program is too lengthier? In that time, if the program is too larger, it is very difficult to handle the unstructured programming technique, because at certain point of time what happen, if the same set of statements are being required at different location within the same program, then the sequence of those statements has to be copied depending upon the number of times it is required. Means what? Suppose if I want the sum operation or addition operation, say after every 500 lines, I want the sum operations to be repeated. Okay, in a given one main program, I want to perform the addition operation 5 times. Means every 5 times those series or those steps of instruction has to be copied again and again at the different location of your program. So it becomes more complex, and it makes the program more lengthier. This was a major disadvantage of using the unstructured programming language. So therefore, there was a development of a procedure programming language. Now, how this procedure programming language will work? Let me explain this one with an example here. Now, let us consider this is our main program. Now, this is a procedure. Before we start with this, let us understand what exactly the procedure is. Procedure is nothing but those are the set of instructions which are to be performed in order to perform some specific task. Procedure is nothing but they are the set of instructions which have to be performed in order to achieve some specific task. Now here is a sum operation. I have written a procedure known as sum, wherein this sum may include like int a comma b. Okay, sum is equal to a plus b, return sum. So these are the steps of instruction which will calculate the addition of two numbers for me. So I can call the sum to be as one of the procedure. I can call. So therefore, what is procedure? It is a set of instruction to perform some specific task. Now here, this is my main program. Now when I'm executing the main program, okay, at certain point of a time, I may call one procedure. I may require to perform the addition of two numbers. In that case, I will call a function known as sum, or I will call a procedure. Procedure or function means both the same. I will call a function known as sum. When you make a call like a function known as sum, the control will jump from your main program to that procedure. That means wherever the procedure you have written in a computer memory location, the control will jump from this point to the where you have written the procedure. So with the help of procedure call, you need a function known as sum. No, this procedure call function name should be same as that of this procedure. When the match is found, automatically the control will make a move from your main program. It will jump from your main program to where you have made a procedure call. So here you have written a series of instruction to perform the addition of two numbers. So all those series of instructions will be performed. It will be calculated, and after it calculates, it will return the answer back to that same procedure where the function call was being made. So this is how the procedure program will work. See, after that again we are continuing working with our main program. When you continue with your main program, again at this point of a time you want to make again and you want to calculate again an addition of two numbers. You want to make a procedure call known as sum. Then again you can make a procedure call. When you make a procedure call, again the control may move from this point to this point where you have written the procedure called as sum. Again a series of instructions will be performed, calculated. It will calculate the addition of two numbers and it will return back the answer from the point where you made a function call or the procedure call, and further it will continue with executing of its main program. So therefore the procedure programming, what it is, this is a method that would allow to combine the returning sequence of statements into a single place. We call it as procedure programming, isn't it? We are combining the returning answer, that is return sum, because when you calculate the addition of two numbers, you are returning a variable known as sum. When you return a sum, you are providing the answer back to this particular main program. So we are combining the returning statements, okay, returning statements into a single place known as a main program. This kind of procedure we call it as programming technique, we call it as procedure programming technique. That means the procedure call has been made. It has been made. It is used to invoke the procedure. See, every time in case of unstructured, what happened? Every time you require the sum function, I need to copy all the sequence of instruction again at this point of time. Again at this point of a time, again at this point of a time. How many times you want to perform that operation? So many number of times. The same sequence of code you need to copy. That was causing the program to become very large and it become complex. Okay, therefore to avoid that, the procedure programming came into existence, wherein anytime you need a procedure, you can execute that particular procedure by making a procedure call. Okay, now after the sequence of instructions are being processed here, okay, flow of control will proceed back with its answer to that position where the call was being made. That means once this series of instructions are being executed, okay, the answer will be returning back to the where you made a procedure call itself. Now if this particular procedure, if it is correct, every time it would return you, it would generate you the correct results. If in case of errors, the programmer has to debug it. So this is how exactly the procedure programming will work. Now a single program, now this is one main program, okay. A single program is been actually divided into small pieces called as procedure. So the main program here, it is divided in the form of procedure. Now as per this, we have three different procedures. Remember, one program can have n number of procedures and the sequence of procedure calls you can make. The main program has to pass the data, appropriate data to this particular procedure so that the data could be processed. Now look at this one. Let us consider this is an arithmetic program wherein I have to perform the addition of two numbers, multiplication of three numbers and division of two numbers. So if the program demands at a certain point of a time, it demands for addition, then this main program has to provide an appropriate data. At least two numbers it has to provide to this particular procedure known as addition, wherein it will calculate the answer and it will return back the answer to the main program. That is what I have explained here. So when you are executing the main program, it may encounter the procedure known as sum. So when it encounters a procedure known as sum, through the help of procedure call, you will execute this particular procedure, and once a procedure is executed, you are returning the answer back to where you have made a procedure call. So same way, the main program is responsible in order to provide the data to this particular procedure in order to process the data, and once after processing, the answer will be returned back. Similarly, here I have written a procedure to perform the multiplication of three numbers. That means whenever the main program requires for the multiplication, it has to provide the at least three input data to this particular procedure so that it can process the data, multiplication it can perform and return back the answer. I hope students you are able to understand. Therefore, the flow of data could be viewed here as again as a tree-like structure in the procedure programming language. Moving on to the next topic here. that is structured program. One of the example of procedure program is a structured programming language. Now what exactly this structured program? Structured programming language is same as that of the procedure programming language, but the structured programming use well defined structures, such as it makes use of conditional statement, it makes use of looping statements, it makes use of structures and subroutine. Now this structured programming language actually mainly concentrates on the logic as well as the code. So therefore this structured programming language makes use of sequentially executed statements. What is the sequentially executed statements? Sequentially executed statements where there is a sequence of statements which are executed one after the another. We have already discussed this. So structured programming language can include the sequential executed statements. Also it can include the conditional execution statement. Conditional means like if else, nested if statements, format 1 and format 2, okay, switch statements it makes use of. Then it also makes use of looping statements like while, do while statement, for statement. Plus it also makes use of subroutines. Subroutines in the sense, structured subroutines in the sense functions, that is procedures. Okay, so by the help of all the sequential, conditional, looping and subroutine functions, the structured programming method is the technique is being developed. Okay, it is one of, again it works actually like same like procedure programming, but it has a well systematic defined structured kind of programming language where it includes all these kinds of statements. Now what is forbidden? That means what the structured programming language cannot use, it cannot use go to statement, it cannot use break or continue statement in the middle of the loops, and the structured programming language cannot have multiple entry points and the multiple exit points for the subroutines and all. So those we cannot use in the structured programming language. Moving on to the last programming technique, that is modular programming technique. So what is this modular programming technique? Modular programming technique is nothing but herein the process of splitting. Now look at this diagram. This is one entire program. Okay, this is an entire program. The splitting up or dividing this entire linear program and the complex program into a smaller modules, we call it as modular programming. Okay, splitting up of this entire complex and a linear program into the smaller modules, we refer this as a modular programming, and this method or the process we call it as modularization. Okay, I hope you are able to understand. Now what is the use of this modular programming is, this technique provides a grouping of procedures which are of common functionality into separate modules. Now consider if I have two programs and both the programs requires the procedure known as sum, then it is not recommended that you have to write a procedure called as sum in the first program as well as in the second program. Instead of that, you can create one general procedure known as sum, so that with the help of procedure call, the first program also can make use of that particular module and the second program also can make use of the same sub module. You need not to write any code in your program. So you can you can use the same module with the different help of different programs can make a call for it and make use of the same common module. Such kind of an approach we actually call it as modular programming. Now because of this, isn't it, it is saving your time. So let us understand what are the different advantages of using the modular programming. The first advantage here, it is reusability. What is reusability? Is nothing but, see, if a particular set of instructions has to be executed repeatedly for several different places within the same program, then we can make a group of such instructions or such statements in one particular module, and we may make a call whenever it is required. Suppose if we want within a same program, if you want to repeat the same set of procedure for 6 to 7 times if you want, then you can group it in a single module. You can group it and just make a function call as and when you require. So this avoids actually rewriting the same function every time. Otherwise 6 to 7 times the same series of set of statements you have to repeat within the same given program. So this may lead to the problem. Therefore reusability is nothing but that would help you to group the repeatedly several repeated instructions. If you want it will help you to group into the module, so that you can make a call to that modules whenever as and when it is required within your program. That is what is reusability. Next one is debugging is easier. Debugging is easier in the sense, now look at this particular example. Now each module, now this module is a one which will consist of a data of main program, plus this module can consist of its own data and it can consist of its own procedure. That means what, the module 1 can have its own data as well as procedure. Procedure in the sense like whatever the functions, like some addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. Data in the sense the variables what it is required to perform the the data what is required to perform the operations on this particular procedure. Similarly, here it is a module 2. Module 2 will consist of data of this particular main program, plus it can have its own data, and this module 2 may consist of two procedures. So this procedure might be the multiplication and this procedure might be the division. So whenever the main program requires the multiplication, then it may make a function call to this particular module, and this particular procedure too will be executed n number of times, whether it is 6 7 times, how many number of times if it wants to perform the calculation, it can make a function call here. So this is how exactly the modular programming works. So these modules are very much smaller, they are very much smaller and they are very clear, and these modules will be error free. So if at all, if any errors are there also, the user can easily locate the errors and then debug it, because the code what has been written in these particular modules will be very small. Therefore, the debugging is easier. Then what is the next advantage is that building library functions. That means it is possible for the programmer, okay, to build their own library of most commonly used functions. So suppose if you are extensively using some of the functions that is frequently needed in your program, then you can create your own library functions you can create, so that it would reduce you the time and the space requirements of the program. Say for an example, we have some mathematical built-in functions like power, cos, sine, inverse and all. So if we are using such built-in function, isn't it is helping you to reduce your time, isn't it is helping into developing your code. Okay, so therefore if at all any frequently used functions if you are using in your program, you can create your own library functions you can create. The last one is its portability. Portability in the sense what, so whatever the different kinds of library functions are there, they are all common across the different operating systems. They are very much common. So therefore it will easily help us to port the program what you have written and execute them with much or no modifications at all. Suppose for an example, the program what you have written in C, we can execute it in the C++. That means what, whatever the built-in functions or the library functions which are being used in C are there, they are common with that with of C++, irrespective of whatever operating system you are using, whether it's a new Windows operating or whether it is you use it in Unix operating system. They will support for any kind of library functions. In that case, you can easily port the same program in another platform and you can easily run it. So these were the advantages of the modular programming language. So this completes the chapter, that is problem solving methodology. Thank you students. Take care of yourself.